Hello, everybody. So I'm doing an updated video, and I'm going to use a product. I'm using the latest version of Animate. So let me show you in the indication I had said that I had done it in Animate. You could actually have built it in your previous version. You just need to, if you're doing the action scripting, I found I had an error issue. So that's what I reported about. So I'm going to open up the file that I built, which has got the stop script on it. This is just the one for the testing of the stop. Oh, I know I have 7-day trial. Okay. No. Okay, continue trial. Come on. Okay. So what I have right now is the same animation that we had started off with in our previous lesson, or ended with our previous lesson, and it's got just an object moving up and down. So the first thing we're going to do, and this video is really about using the stop script, and this is basically a way of controlling the timeline, and it uses ActionScript, a program we call ActionScript. That's why we chose ActionScript 3.0 as our file type. So I'm going to start off by first going and creating a new layer. And this new layer is down in my layers bar, and I'm going to call this one actions. And I'm using all capitals. It doesn't matter if you use capitals or not. What I'm doing is making sure it stands out to me because I don't want to put anything other than action script or actions on this particular layer. I don't want to put anything else like images or anything like that on this layer. So I'm going on there. I've created the actions. It's just literally a blank frame all across. It went out to frame 60 because that's where I ended the last time. And what I want to do is I want to stop the program at frame 60. That means that instead of it going and playing over and over again, so I'll show you here basically what happens previous to this. So if I run it now in my browser, my browser's going really slow. Okay, so you'll notice it just keeps on bouncing. It doesn't stop. So what we want to do is, part of this is with Animate is to control our screen because we're going to control this and then add interactions with it. So the first thing I need to do is stop the video from going up and down. So there's actually a way where you can turn off repeat, but that's not the way that is the proper way. So we're going to go in and we're going to take and create an action right there on frame 60. And to make it so that I can put something just on that frame, I'm actually going to create something called a keyframe. Or actually, I'm going to be converting frame 60 into a keyframe. So I clicked on it. Now I'm going to go up to my modify, and I'm going to timeline. Oops, yep, timeline, and go down to convert to keyframes. Okay, and all it's doing is making it so that one frame is separate, stands out all by itself, and it's a point of change. And keyframes are what we call points of change. So I'm on frame 60. I'm going to click my cursor right on it. And you can click off of it to see that it's got a little circle in the center. But I click my cursor on it. And we can do this a number of different ways. I'm a person that uses the control click because I'm on a Mac. But if you are on a PC, then you can just right click. But I'm going to click on it and choose the very last option called Actions. When I come up with Actions, it's going to open up this blank prompter window. Now, in the old days, we used to have to write our own code. That's no longer the case. So over in the right-hand side of that top Actions panel, there's actually something that's a question mark, and right to the left of that is something called code snippets. Code snippets is this little pieces of code that have been already written, so we don't have to write them. It's already got the right punctuation, everything like that. So I'm going to click on that the two brackets there, greater than, less than bracket. It's going to open up a code snippets palette. Now, we're building action scripts, so we don't have to worry about the HTML5 and WGL, or WGL. So we're going to go to action script, and then we're going to do something. We're controlling the timeline. So we're going to go to timeline navigation. All the stuff that you're going to do for our project is actually going to be done using the timeline navigation action script. So the very first one is stop at this frame. So I'm going to double click on that. When I do that, it automatically adds the proper code right into my actions palette. It even tells me what it's going to do, which is really cool about Flash or Animate, is the fact that you can learn as you go in case you want to do something with it more in the future. Some of you, I'm sure, have got some C background, and you can certainly manipulate this a lot more than just the standard. So I've made that change. I'm going to close down this window. And now when I look down there on my timeline, I will see that there's a little tiny A right in that keyframe that I created. And that's actually an actions. It's actually the action script is written right there on that frame. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to test my movie. So I'm going to control, test movie. I'm going to test in a browser. That's the big thing now, is testing everything in a browser. Before, you could test it in Animate, but all the functionality does not come. We want to make sure we test it out in the browser. So mine's going to take a couple seconds to load. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to load here. I'm going to pause the recording here for a moment while it's doing that. Hello, everyone. I actually have decided to make a small change because it'll get around some of the issues we're having. One of the things that I had mentioned in my message that went out and also in the discussion forum is that there is an issue that comes up, a Java engine issue, when you go and test in a browser. So if I go control, test movie, and test in browser, you will oftentimes get an error message. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But one of the things that can actually allow us to not have to worry about that issue is actually if you test and animate. And so this will be the one time where I allow this. Normally with projects that don't let people do this with the test and animate, you have to test in the browser. But because of the fact of these Java issues that are coming up, I'm going to allow everyone to submit their final project as just an animate, but you can test it out there in the browser. I'm sorry, test it in Animate itself. It will function as it should because in the latest version, it's already set up that way. So if I test and animate, you'll see here in a second, it also takes a little bit less time to compile it all because it's not having to compile all of it and then prepare all the HTML5. So come on, I'm going to pause it again so we don't have the recording here. So pause. Okay, so as I was mentioning, I'm going to test this inside of Animate. And like I said, I'll let that just because, like I said, we've had so many recent problems with it. And you'll notice it stops right there at this frame. And this is where I have the stop script. That's at frame 60. So it went all the way up, it went all the way down, and it stopped. So that's the biggest thing for this lesson, is being able to create a stop script using ActionScript. So it's introducing you to ActionScripts, and at the same time, it's actually taking and showing you how to add the stop script. Our next video will cover adding a button so you can add interactions to your Animate project.